Garrett Greene, thanks for joining the show. Really appreciate you coming on. The voice of the Biloxi Shuckers since 2018. Did I get that right? And if I did, just kind of give us a recap of the story of how you got to where you are, right? I mean, you're a play-by-play guy in AA. That's quite the accomplishment in such a short amount of time. So give us the story.
Well, thanks. I'm going to be red from that. So not the sun, but I've been with Biloxi since 2018. I went to school down in Austin at the University of Texas. I worked in Austin for about another 3.5 years, worked in sports talk radio there doing production, weekend stuff, board hopping, hosting, audio engineering, all while doing like high school play-by-play and a little bit of D3 on internet radio. Ultimately turned that into a gig with the St. Paul Saints when they were an independent team, but still phenomenal. The second year that they were at CHS Field was the year I was there. Turned that into working for the Brewers rookie ball affiliate in Helena, Montana, gone but not forgotten, in 2017. And then, I landed here in Biloxi, and I've been here ever since.
It's great. Shout out to the Pioneer League. I mean, we had Eddie Cedar on a couple days ago. I was in Orem in 2016. Quick shout out to Susie Milano as well. Shout out to Helena. But as far as, I mean, you and I are going to connect being minor league broadcaster guys, but for those who don't understand the grind, I mean, everyone hears the grind of minor league baseball and things, they think it's romantic and Bull Durham and all this. It's a grind. Can you take us through the daily life of your role with Biloxi?
Yeah. So last year, now granted, I didn't have an assistant last season, so last year was a little different. But last year, I took 3 days off the entire summer. I took Memorial Day, July 5th, because July 4th was a Sunday and we played, and Labor Day, because that was a Monday. Those are the 3 days that I took that I said, I'm not picking up my laptop. I'm not doing anything. That was it. So out of the entire summer, those were the only days I had off. But no, a typical day, you get to the ballpark, 9:00 if you have to take the tarp off the field, 10:00 if you don't, and you get stat packs together, you get your game notes, either they're done and you print them or you finish wrapping them up. Then you take care of handling interviews, you get lineups, you distribute those everywhere. Somewhere in there, you manage to fit in prep. You write press releases, you write program articles. And then I do a pregame show inside of the stadium from about 5:50 to 6:10. First pitch is at 6:35. Call the game. Game ends. Write the postgame story. Put that on the website. Put it on social media. Cut highlights if we win or if there was a big play or a prospect did something. And then go home, shower, go to bed, and wake up and do it all again for 6 straight days. That's when you're at home. And as Dom knows, when you're on the road, it's a little bit easier. You sleep in. I go golf sometimes. So you grind real hard at home, but then you take it a little bit easier on the road. But it's still, we have Pensacola in our league. And I always tell people when we go down there, I golf one day and I go to the beach one day. But even those days, I still end up working like a 12-hour day, even if I go to the beach in the morning. So I don't feel too guilty about it.
That was like me in Myrtle Beach back in the Carolina League. I totally relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that's amazing. That day you just said, I don't think I'd do that much in a week. And it's like, holy cow. So it's a grind. And what people don't understand is you guys are riding the bus with the team. I mean, you are part of the team. And I mean, guys get to know you really well. I always got to know the radio guy really well when I played. And I mean, take us through that a little bit. I mean, obviously you just kind of described everything, but the riding of the bus and getting up at, 3 a.m. sometimes, or getting into a city at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. sometimes. Yeah. Take us through that.
Yeah. So that was something that I missed a little bit last year. There was about a month and a half where I did get to ride the bus. It was for one of our longer trips that we made, so that was really nice. But otherwise, the back end of the season, I went back to driving myself because that was in the middle of the Delta surge, and we're down here in the Southeast, so it was pretty severe down here. So I totally got that. But no, in a normal year, which I'm expecting this year to be, we're lucky in this league that we really don't have terrible travel. And we already did 5-game series before minor league baseball reorganized and did 6-game series, which, like, as a side note, I think that is one game too many because then you get like the same starter twice.
Right.
However, I'll take it so you have Monday off. That's an okay trade-off.
Amen.
But you get to Sunday and you're just like, please not these guys again, especially when we play like Mississippi 30 times in a season. So you're just like, I've seen this guy. I know what's going to happen. Please don't make me do this again. Or they think the same thing. No, but so bus rides here anywhere from like 2 hours. The longest trip we have is like 10 hours. So that's not terrible. But when we used to have Jacksonville in our league, I remember there was one time we played a Monday through Friday series, and this would have been back in 2019. And then it got rained out on Thursday at home, so we had to play a doubleheader on Friday night. And then we loaded up the bus, and we got on the road at like 11:30. We're going to Jacksonville. You lose an hour going to the Eastern time zone, and it's an 8-hour bus trip. So we rolled into town at 9 a.m., got to the hotel, unload. I went upstairs, showered, and got in bed until about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then woke up and went to the ballpark, and we played at 7 o'clock that night. So that's you get those kinds of things, and it's not as bad in this league as it is like in the old. I know the Eastern League has some long trips. The Carolina League has some localized travel, but there's a little bit of a stretch. And the old Sally League, that's the one that I know they had, like, from Bowling Green to long stretches there, but it's not terrible in our league. But yeah, the first time having to climb over the mountains of people to try and get to the bathroom in the back. The first trip I ever did that was when I was in Helena, and we were about halfway through the trip, and I looked back and I saw what I was going to have to go over. And I just said, you know what? I'll just wait till we get to Missoula. And it took a little bit of time to get comfortable to say, no, I'm just going to climb over everybody.
Yeah, and our problem, too, is that, us staff, we're in the front of the bus. That makes it even harder for us to climb through and everything. And I can hear people through the podcast shuddering at hearing, 10 hours, that's not that bad. That's just how we roll in the minor leagues, baby. We got to go to the game, and it is what it is. If you don't like it, play better. If you don't like it, broadcast better, right?
Yeah, well, that's the goal, is ultimately get to those chartered flights.
Yes.
But they have, it wasn't just a COVID change; it was a standard of living change that they made to where most teams have 2 buses now, and so there is a lot more room to navigate on them than there used to be. And I just think about what it was like to cram like 45 to 50 people on one bus with everybody's gear, and we did it because we had to, but I don't know how we did.
Yeah, I was buddied up always with our trainer on our bus in Orem, so that's pretty funny. But as far as the actual gig, let's get into the team, and let's get into your manager, Mike Guerrero. He's coming back again this year. What's it like having him on your staff? And you got Chucky as your hitting coach, Chucky Caulfield, and Nick Childs is back as well. So take us through your coaching staff this year.
Yeah, so I've been very blessed to have Mike as a manager. No one matches up with Mikey. He is just as easygoing as they can be. Incredibly smart, incredibly baseball savvy. Guys speak very highly of him. He's just always doing things to try and make guys better. And it's small things, and it's finding the right way to push buttons with guys. Mike's obviously from the Dominican Republic, so he has a way that he can, really mingle well with Latin players, but he doesn't play favorites with those guys. He's the same that he is with everybody. And he's the kind of guy who late in the season in 2019, to try and keep it light, like he just went shirtless for batting practice one day and was just hitting fungos shirtless. But Mikey's always got a fungo in his hand. He's always trying to make guys better, working on the infield. He's very savvy with how the game is. It's a shame that we lose the pitchers hitting, because Mike was great with really playing those double switches and things along those lines. So that's a kind of a lost advantage, I really feel like, but I can't speak highly enough about Mikey. I think he is great at this level. We're very fortunate. He loves Biloxi. He's great with our season ticket holders, and he's great with all the players that we have that come through. Chucky has obviously been here since 2017. He's been our hitting coach for a couple of seasons now, and I know that guys have really enjoyed working under him. He also handles the outfielders, so when you take a look back at guys like Trent Grisham, Corey Ray, Tyrone Taylor, Dylan Thomas, who obviously ended up with another team, all those guys who have come through, Chucky's had a hand in crafting them into being the outfielders that they are, and we've got a boatload of outfield depth this year that we're going to have to deal with. So I'm excited for that. And then Nick, it was first year with Nick. And unfortunately, with some of the COVID stuff, I didn't get a chance to interact with him and pick his brain as much as, I would in previous years with a pitching coach. But everything that I heard and saw, he's really good at meshing the analytics and helping guys understand when they're throwing bullpens and they've got, a TrackMan there and they're looking at spin rate and trying to replicate what it is that they want to succeed with and hit those numbers that they're looking to get to. He's really good at helping them understand that. He's also good with the scouting reports for other teams and other hitters. So I'm excited for him to be back. And he was always great to text me back and call me back, but I'm hoping for a few more face-to-face conversations with him this season.
Yeah, I had Mikey and I played with Chucky. So, both those guys I know really well. And they're both just baseball guys through and through. And Mikey, I think Mikey's been there with the Brewers now for, is it over 25 years?
I want to say that he's been, if you include the time that he played in the Brewers system and then managed and coached, I think something like 23 out of his 24 years as a manager have been with the Brewers. And he got win number 1,300 last season as a manager.
Amazing.
Yeah,
totally amazing. And Chucky's well on his way as well as far as his ability to connect with players. And that's what it really takes, and we've talked about that on the podcast before. It takes those guys, and like you said, to kind of blend the analytics and then the ability to actually coach, and that's where these guys do separate themselves. I totally agree. How about getting into some of these players, right? My goodness, there's a few names here that played on the team last year that are well on their way to the big leagues. Give me what you got on Bryce Terrance. We gotta talk about him right away. He played 73 games for the Shuckers last year.
Yeah, Bryce was exceptionally impressive. And I think people forget that he's 22 now, I think. Yeah. But because he was drafted out of high school and everything like that. No, Bryce was fantastic. Early on in the season, a lot of scouts that I talked to said, well, he's probably more of a center fielder. Like, he's athletic, but can he really play it short? And is he going to handle the bat well enough? By the time that he was about ready to get promoted, there was no question about it. Like, everyone was like, no, this guy is a shortstop. He's got exceptional range. He's very fluid. He's got a great instinct for the game, and he's only getting better. And he's one of those guys who, like, you look, I think he had something like 13 errors for us last year. And there were a couple that it was like, a ball just like slipped right through him. And, he's playing 138 games or whatever it was last season for only the second time in his career. So, how did that impact him? But otherwise, he continued to improve and get better. You saw a progressively more and more pop in his bat as the year went along. And I think that, I don't know if he's going to be a guy who hits 25 home runs in a season, but I think he'll definitely give you double-digit home runs. And he's got great gap-to-gap power, great ability to stay on the ball, obviously has a very good understanding of his plate discipline. And when we did have a little bit of a lifting of the COVID restrictions, I did have a chance to chat with him. There was one day we were in Pearl taking on the Mississippi Braves, and I just happened to wander down to the clubhouse, and I spent about a half hour talking with him, and I forgot that I was talking to a 21-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. He was talking about things for, where he was looking to buy real estate if he ultimately wanted to have a family, and what his long-term plans were, and just some life things like that I walked away and I had to remind myself, this is a 21-year-old kid who honestly maybe has some more of his life put together than I do at 30. And that was what also really impressed me throughout the course of having Bryce with us. Wasn't surprised when he moved up to AAA. Obviously, he's going to be there until the shortstop position opens up, maybe in a couple of seasons, hopefully. But I think Brewers fans should be very excited about Bryce. I think he checks all the boxes that you need.
One of the stories that emerged from your team, folks may remember the name Lucas Ursek. And remembering him being drafted out of Cal as a hitter, he has gone through a lot, is finding in sobriety as well. There's a great piece written this week as well on that. I believe it was by Adam McCalvey. And one of the things that he is now a pitcher, and he pitched a lot for your club this year. What was it like watching Lucas now find his new calling as a pitcher in the organization?
Yeah, Lucas actually confided that in me early in the season. I didn't get a chance to talk to him about it, but when he showed up to Biloxi, they had mentioned that he was going to be a two-way player early on. And I saw him, and he was much slimmer and much more athletic than when he was with us in 2018 when he played the entire season for us at third base. And I asked him, I was like, hey, I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but like, what did you do that you're now slimmed down? And he mentioned that he really started taking his diet seriously, and he mentioned sobriety, and that was a big part of what he was able to do. And I think he understands that this is kind of his chance to make it to the big leagues. You're starting to get bypassed as a prospect a little bit, and you have to make something happen for yourself. Early on in the season, he was a true two-way player. He'd pitch in relief a little bit. He'd be the designated hitter. He played third for us. He played first a little bit. But then in mid-July, the Brewers made the decision. Actually, it was early July. They made the decision to just have him on the mound. And they had him as a starter and slowly stretched him out more and more and more. And by the month of August, he had gone from a guy who throws a 98-mile-an-hour fastball, and that was kind of about it, to where he really did have three pitches that he was mixing in. He'd taken a little bit of velocity off of his fastball. He was sitting more like 94 to 96, but he could reach back and find that 98 when he really needed it. And in 5 starts, he had like a 2.08 ERA in the month of August. So he did have something that shut him down kind of at the end of the season, but I'm guessing since nothing has really come out about that, it was probably just fatigue at the end of the year, and he's all set to go. I think that since he probably spent the entire offseason focusing on being a pitcher, I envision that he's going to end up moving into the bullpen. That's where his spot's going to be. I mean, he was the hardest thrower on the staff last season as a guy who in February of last year decided to hop back on the mound again. So if he spent a full offseason focusing on pitching, I wouldn't be surprised if he maybe added another tick or two to his fastball. And if ultimately the spot for him is going to be in the bullpen. But more than anything last year, he just got a really good understanding of how to take care of your body in between days that you pitch, what you need to do to make sure you're ready, and also understanding how to attack hitters, put together a game plan, all things that should translate very well for this next season. I'd expect he's going to start with us, and he's going to pitch out of the bullpen. And then if he checks all the right boxes, he's one of those guys who could be fast-tracked to move up to the next level.
And before you go, Vinny, I just want to say shout out to Will Salmon. He also wrote the story on it as well. Yep. I know Will listens all the time, and I don't want him calling me saying, you didn't mention my article either. So both Adam and Will have great articles out.
They both, this is one where it's like, it's the same story. I'd recommend reading both of them because they both did a very good job telling this story in an interview that they obviously were both there for. And so, go read both Adam and Will's article. And I'm not just saying that because I know both those guys and talk to them. Like, they are both fantastic reads and give you a really good insight into how Lucas got to where he is now.
And Lucas is a tremendous kid. Is kind of a rougher upbringing, right, that he had, and he's kind of overcome, and we're all rooting for him to make it to the big leagues. Amazing the kind of power that's coming out of that arm. I mean, he's not that big of a guy, but he's just got an incredibly quick arm.
It did not, really quickly to interject. Yeah. I was not surprised at all that he moved to the mound because the whole season he played third for us. I was terrified for Jake Gatewood, who's our first baseman, because of the velocity coming out of his hand to throw across the diamond. So I was like, that makes sense. It checks the box that he moved to the mound. Yeah,
he had an 80 arm for sure at third base. A couple other guys I wanted to just kind of mention from last year's team before we get into this coming roster. I know we're getting a little bit long on this, but one of the guys that I really loved and I wanted to get your take on is David Fry, and then also Peyton Henry, and because he got traded, right? So this was a guy that I thought was going to be a Milwaukee Brewer when I was scouting. I thought he was going to be a Brewer behind the plate, at least a backup chance to catch every day, and obviously he got traded. But you got David Fry. And then one other guy real quick, Jake Cousins. Did you scout that, and did you call that he was going to be that good as a big leaguer last year after pitching 9 innings in Biloxi?
All right, so
I'll
just start with Jake. I'll just start with Jake, and I'll try and be a little more brief with my answers because I can get long.
No. You speak for a living, Garrett. We know this.
Yes, and I always say I feel bad for like my wife by the time that we get to August, because by then you're like 100 games into the season. So everything you say turns into this long, winding road. And so she'll ask me like a question that requires one sentence for an answer. And 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I should stop talking now. No, to answer your question. So Jake Cousins, when he got to the big leagues, yes, I thought he'd be very successful because he was so impressive while he was here. Before the season, did not think that was going to be the case, but he was put into some high leverage, high pressure situations for us and converted every single time. That really kind of hurt our season because I think they were planning on him being our closer for a much longer spell than just like 8 games, but he was pitching so well. It was no surprise that he got bumped up, and he kind of followed not the exact same thing, but like the Devin Williams track where it's like you dominate at AA, you go up to AAA for a quick spell, and oh no, get this guy into our bullpen. He knows what he's doing. As for David Fry, me and our videographer last year all season said like David Fry is going to be a big leaguer. He's just a sneaky guy who the Brewers got in the 6th round. I asked him how he ended up at Northwestern State on the Shucking Around podcast, and he said when I came out of high school, I was like 5'9" and like 165 pounds. And then he just went through a massive growth spurt at Northwestern State. He's got the body to be a third baseman. He has an incredibly live arm. It translates well behind home plate. He's got great bat discipline as well. Last year, he really focused on hitting the ball the other way. And it took him a minute to fit into the lineup and for them to find a place for him every day. But when they did, he was exceptionally successful. And yeah, he's one of those sneaky guys who kind of fits the Brewers mold. He can play third, he can play second, he can catch, he can play out and left a little bit. He can play first for you if you need. Really, the only thing he can't do is probably play center or short. Those are about the only 2 spots that you couldn't find him.
That's great. As far as another player, and we're getting ready to wrap it up here in a little bit too as well, but someone that's watching, I shouldn't say player, but looking at stats with your team specifically and on the offensive side. Can you take us inside to a lot of us in the minor league side and in the scouting world, Vinny, know about Biloxi and know about the hitting environment that is. Tell us why folks shouldn't be alarmed at seeing low power numbers or low hitting numbers down there with the Shuckers.
Yeah, so our league is not a hitter's league. It is down in the southeast. It's humid. It is hot, but like every locale has a high amount of humidity. There aren't really any like small ballparks in the league. There aren't many that you just look at and you say, oh man, we should hit so many home runs while we're here. They're all pretty good sized parks. Some of them are a little bit bigger as well. And so with those league factors, that's part of why you don't see the power numbers. Plus, this is a prospect league. This is a league that has a lot of live, very talented, very good arms. Last year alone, just off the top of my head, we didn't even see the Reds affiliate in the Chattanooga Lookouts, but they had Nick Lodolo and Hunter Green. We did see the Montgomery Biscuits way too many times, and they were running out Shane Boz, who obviously made it to the major leagues by the end of the year, and the Rays just every single guy that they have throws like 97 and comes at you from all different arm angles. So you have and then for Pensacola, they had Jake Eater, who was, on pace to be one of the best pitchers in the minors before we had Tommy John. And then they had Max Meyer, who was the 3rd overall pick and probably should have gotten bumped up to AAA much earlier than he did. So there's a lot of really quality pitching that comes through this league. Add that on to the humidity, the size of the ballparks. The batting averages all across this league are pretty low. We just got very lucky in 2018 and 2019 that we had some really heavy hitting, slugging teams, but that was kind of more the exception than the rule for us those couple of years.
And then we'll get you out of here shortly in a little bit, but let's go back to May 15th. And let's go back to Ethan Small on the mound, a combined no-hitter that you got to call. Take us through that day. Did you realize it as it was happening? And the crazy thing is, the tying run was on second base at the end of that game in a 1-0 game. Like, the game was still on the line in addition to being a no-hitter. So what was the thrill like to being able to call a no-hitter like that?
All right, so I'm sorry, this is going to get slightly long-winded. So in my time that I've been in Biloxi, I have had 3 individual no-hitters go to 2 outs in the last inning 2 of them were 2 outs in the 9th, and 1 of them was 2 outs in the 7th. And all 3 of them have gotten broken up pretty much the exact same way. Won all 3 games, obviously. So I kind of became aware of it after Ethan was done. You know, you look at his line, it's like I think he walked 5 guys that night. So there was a lot of traffic on the bases. But we got through 5 innings and there were no hits. Then Nathan Kirby came out, who obviously ended up getting traded. Or no, Jake Cousins pitched the next inning. I think Jake walked a batter. Or no, it was Zach Venero. I'm sorry. Zach Venero might have walked a batter, but he got through a hitless inning. Nathan Kirby threw 2 perfect innings. So by the time we got through the 8th inning, I'm like, okay, I know exactly what is happening here. Got to the 9th, Matt Hardy comes on, and unfortunately, because I had just been so conditioned, I'm like, all right, 2 outs in the 9th inning. Here we go. It's going to get broken up right here. I'm just not. So if you listen back to my call, I think you can hear just the surprise in my voice, because I could not believe it was a called strike 3 and that was the end of the ball game. And there was the no-hitter. That it was just so surprising. And because there had been so much traffic on the bases, I think there have been like 9 base runners that night. There were guys on the team who didn't realize that it was a no-hitter. Some of the guys were mobbing and celebrating, and then others were like, wait, what are we doing? We won 1-0, but it's like the second Saturday in May. What are we doing? But I was lucky. My parents were in town for that game. My wife actually decided to come to the game that night. So it was a really cool moment for me personally, but obviously for the guys. You're thrilled for them. And it did not surprise me Ethan Small orchestrated that, and that he bumped up after 8 starts with us.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And now he's going to be a candidate to make it into the starting rotation. So we actually have a spring training to talk about here, Garrett. How about it? We made it.
I got to be honest. I've been so nose to the grindstone. I was like, I'm just thrilled that the minor leagues, this is the first time since 2019 that we know exactly what day we're going to start. I had faith they were going to get it sorted out, but I was just full focus ahead of the Shuckers. But now that we've got everything else going on with spring training, I obviously couldn't be more thrilled about it.
Well, for all of our farm teams, of course, Nashville in AAA, you guys Biloxi in AA, High A up now in Appleton with Wisconsin, the T-Rattlers, and then down in Low A with the Carolina Mudcats in Zebulon, North Carolina. We all notice what you guys do. We appreciate all the coverage and everything you share because, look, it is the future of the Brewers organization, and here we are on Fridays now on Locked On Brewers, going to be talking minor league baseball here during spring training, so we really do appreciate you coming on, being our first guest for future Fridays.
No, thank you guys so much. I appreciate it, and we're going to do everything we can to provide a lot of coverage this year because based on the projections, we are going to have a lot of very big names in the system that are going to be playing in Biloxi. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure you guys know everything about all these players and have some stuff to get excited about for the coming years for the Brewers.
And if you live down south, go check out a Shuckers game and make sure that Garrett takes care of your tickets, okay? So we'll get you out there.
I got you taken care of.
That's fantastic.
I'm good for it.
Thank you so much, Garrett. We wish you all the best this season.
Thanks guys.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.